Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hi there. Welcome to Cycles of Time podcast. This is your weekly forecast for November 4th to 10th, 2024. And this week I have the honor of having a special guest in the studio, Morgan Shidler, the creator of Hustle and Play, which is an amazing wellness program that helps people connect with play in their lives so that they can be the most authentic and fulfilled versions of themselves. And she is a true pleasure activist. She's someone who I have had a lot of experiences in the activist world with, living together in Oakland, California, in the Bay Area. We went to the Women's March in Washington, D.C. in 2017 and rallied a lot of people to come across and bring people to that march together. And Morgan is just an amazing, inspiring person that I'm really excited about this conversation. So I'm so happy that you're here this week. And we are in the Wheel of the Year. We are in a waxing moon phase away from that Scorpio new moon that happened last Friday to coincide with Samhain, Halloween, Dia de los Muertos. So I hope you had a beautiful celebration of ancestors last week, tapping into your roots, tapping into the multitudes of other beings that make you who you are. And this week we are coming out of that energy a little bit. We have an election in the United States here tomorrow on November 5th. And that's a big one. We're definitely all feeling it. And I think listening to this anytime this week, when you listen to it, will probably sound different whether you listen on Monday or you listen on Friday, because a lot of information will be revealed over the course of that time. This election tomorrow is a kind of interesting configuration astrologically. As I mentioned yesterday, was an exact opposition between Pluto in Capricorn and Mars in Cancer. So it's kind of this polarity, tug of war, ping pong match between the planet of war and the Lord of the Underworld, essentially, in the signs of home and the signs of structure and hierarchy. And so, yeah, we're fighting for the homeland in this election. There's a lot at stake, a lot on the line. I do encourage you to vote if you haven't already. I definitely believe that there's a lot to protest right now, no matter who wins, with the horrific atrocities that are happening across the world in the Middle East right now. But I do believe that this election is not the best place to to protest that. I think that we can continue protesting in a more strategic and nuanced way on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, into the new year, and we will. We have a long fight ahead of us, that's for sure, to reach the better, more beautiful, more just world that we all dream of living in. But abstaining from voting when we have the privilege to vote on a day where there's so much at stake, I don't think personally that is the right protest move. And I did see a post the other day, just as a little aside, that said, we are not voting for or against genocide in this election. That's not on the line. That's not on the voting block. But what we are voting for is which administration we want to be fighting against genocide and against all of the atrocities that are happening in the world. Which person, which figurehead, which administration is going to allow us to continue to keep protesting and using our voices. So that really put it into perspective for me. And I do encourage you to get out there and vote, do your civic duty. It definitely is a privilege that not everyone in this world has. So I digress. It's definitely a week of using our voices up ahead. The themes for the week, I really just wrote one theme this week, and it is creating a new world from the heart. Because there is a lot going on in addition to that opposition between Pluto and Mars. This election chart in the astrology also has a grand trine between Neptune, Mercury, and Mars. And that's interesting because a trine is like flowing energy in between those three planets. And Neptune is a planet of shrouded information, kind of under the water, not necessarily clear, the depths, kind of imagination and confusion. And making a trine to Mars, which is just about to enter Leo out of Cancer. And so that's kind of like a kind of feisty being that's been pent up for a little bit too long. And then make the third point of that triangle in this grand trine is Mercury in Sagittarius. And that is Mercury's a planet of communication. And so it's all about kind of communicating wisdoms and truths, right? And so having Neptune and in Pisces in its home, very watery, very confusing and delusional, and filled with misinformation and disinformation, at a trine with Mercury, communication of truth, and then Mars having that kind of aggressive piece, is definitely pointing towards what we could have probably all expected. This election will not have a simple result, and then we just go back to our lives and go about our business. Like, nobody quite believes that is going to happen. So I would welcome you to tap into the I Ching energy of the week, the human design and gene keys gate that we're transiting through this week for the election, which is gate 1, the initiatory gate in the King 1 sequence. And it is the gate of self-expression, gate of the creator or the creative. And then that's Monday through Saturday, and then on Sunday, we'll move into the gate of insight. So both of these are about looking into our inner light rather than being caught up in the fray of all of the conflicting and confusing information that is going to be served to us from yesterday onward, right? So for the past several weeks, we have been the sun has been transiting through gates in the Wheel of the Year that are splenic gates in the human design body graph. So they've been gates all the way through Libra season and the beginning of Scorpio season that are focused on our primal instinct and our gut level awareness. And this is the first gate coming out of that. And it's gate 1, and it is located in the heart center. So the theme of the week is creating a new world from the heart. It is kind of all we can do is tap into our hearts and the courage that lies within our hearts in order to create the world that we want to see. And so, it's known as heaven over heaven in the I Ching. It is 6 solid yang lines, this double trigram of yang, solid yang over solid yang. It is full self-aware creation, and it's opposite in the Wheel of the Year from gate 2, which is known as the receptive. And it is all about the power of creativity. And I really love to use the metaphor when it comes to creativity, this idea that we can exercise our creative muscles. And the more that we exercise them, the stronger we will be. And the more our creativity will thrive. It will atrophy if we don't utilize it and exercise it. And so this week is all about using our creative energy, our actions and expressions to honor who we truly are and honor all of the wisdom that we've gained from looking into the depths and the shadows of our fears over the past few weeks, over, the spooky season so far, and really finding the courage here this week to express ourselves fully despite fears and despite societal pressures. I'd say that it's just a week of not compromising yourself in your creative identity, because you are all that you have, and your individuality is your superpower. And when you channel your individuality and your expression into creative outlets, you're able to, number one, process your experiences in a tangible way, and also have the ability to help others tap into their truth and authenticity. There's a quote by Ra Uru Hu that says, "When happily absorbed in doing your own thing, you are not aware that you are attracting the attention of others. It is while you are being true to your creative process that what you are doing and how you are doing it has its greatest impact. As you exemplify new ways of expressing your authentic self, you empower others to consider new perspectives or new ways of being in the world. You may even change their creative direction." And Ralph Waldo Emerson, another quote that I wrote down, says, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." So the wisdom of Gate 1 this week is about surrendering and cultivating trust in your creative process. It's not necessarily a social gate. I think this week there will be so much information and so much just data to absorb and multiple conflicting truths to absorb, that with this creative power, it might be a good week to, find a little space in your house that's phone free, computer free, or to put some limits onto your phone usage, even if just for a little bit of time, to give yourself the mental clarity and remove the pressure of having to figure it all out, because I know that there's going to be a lot of confusion. And so I'm going to create a little altar in my house this week, light some candles, and make it a phone-free and tech-free zone so I can go into my alone space and tap into my inner creativity and tap into all of the juicy wisdom that's been cultivated from being in touch with the ancestors and in touch with the other beings out there over the past few weeks. And another thing that would be great to do would be to touch in with people who fan your flame, who are aligned with you, and have a support group for other people to talk to that's not just a bunch of hyperbole or shit talking, but really people who are able to help see your creative expression, see your visions for the world, and align with them as well. And there's a quote by Rumi that I love that says, "Do not feel lonely. The entire universe is inside you. Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. Set your life on fire. Seek those who fan your flames." And that's about all I'll say about Gate 1. It is just tap into your superpower about your creative expression, the fullness of you, the things that bring you joy, and your fears and your wisdom and your pain, and choose to be vulnerable with yourself in that, and be creative. Use that as creative energy, and seek those who fan your flames. I love that. It's really important to feel that we can be vulnerable with others at this point in time, and to speak our truths and show our true fullness of ourselves. And one of the people in this world who does that for me is Morgan Shidler, our guest on the show today. She is just an incredible force of a human. She is so amazing. I just learned from doing this podcast that her sun gate, Gate 50, the gate of the cauldron, is where my Saturn and Pluto are located in my natal chart. And so those are some pretty powerful and intense outer planets, the planet of structure and the planet of kind of the deepest depths, and they align with her sun. And so there's no wonder that I admire her so much as far as what she radiates out into the world and is able to really bring in, which is this bringing together of people from different backgrounds and different values and inspiring them and providing a space and facilitating a beautiful space where people can come to terms with their truths in community with each other. So I think you'll really enjoy this conversation with Morgan. I will pop on at the end to give her information of how to find her, and that'll also be in the show notes. But thanks so much for listening to Cycles of Time. You can follow me on Instagram at astro.somatics and at Cycles of Time podcast. And also, please don't hesitate to share this episode if it resonates with you as you make your way creatively through this week that's sure to bring its share of intensity. So without further ado, here's a conversation with Morgan. So I'm sitting here with Morgan Shidler, who is a dear friend of mine and a multi-passionate and multi-talented creator who's here on the show with us today as our Scorpio season guest. And it's quite fittingly during the week of self-expression. This in the Human Design Wheel. This is the week of self-expression. And Morgan's birthday was a couple weeks ago almost, and her sun gate is in Human Design Gate 50, which is the gate of values. And I'm throwing that out at you. You're at the very end of the gate of values and right on the cusp between the gate of values and the gate of the game player, which we can jump into a little bit later. And we've talked about both of those gates over the past couple of episodes for those of you who have been listening in. Morgan is the creator of an amazing project called Hustle and Play, which is a wellness program that centers collective healing and accountability with a research-based framework for reflection, visualization, and behavior change. Hustle and Play, as far as my experience with it, is a tangible calendar workbook and coaching program that teaches people how to build their dream life into their schedule, inspire them to keep going with a playful community, and give them the tools to go back to their world as their highest self. Morgan has a master's in organization and leadership, and she did a 2023 TEDx talk titled Becoming Well in a Culture of Burnout, and she has 15 years working in educational leadership. Morgan believes wholeheartedly that play is the antidote to burnout and the systemic injustices that cause it. Morgan is also an incredible professional photographer who beautifully captures people's creative essence. She's an event and retreat facilitator and also just a truly inspiring, lovely, wonderful human being who I have the pleasure of being friends with. So welcome to Cycles of Time, Morgan. So good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. You put a lot of pretty little fluff on that bio, and I love it. Thank you. My heart is bursting.
No fluff. You are a powerhouse and amazing inspiration to me. So I'm so honored that you could be here and chat with our audience today. I wanted to wish you a happy belated birthday as well.
Thank
you. Yeah. You're a Scorpio queen. I like to think of Scorpios as queens, generally, the ones that I know. And you
that is
you
how we prefer
that.
to be referred to. Also.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
It's a pretty dark place inside. So if we can be seen.
Wear the crown. Yeah.
Wear the crown of the weight that we carry in the darkness.
There you go. Yeah. I just went to the mall yesterday and bought my Scorpio daughter a spider web crown on her request. Oh. She was, she wants to have a super spider birthday this year. So she's deep in the Scorpio. Yeah, she's had a black cat birthday. She knows.
Yes.
She knows. Yeah. Yes. But since you're such a proponent of play and such an advocate for play, I'm curious what kind of play you've been getting into for your birthday season.
Well, okay, so I'm having an interesting relationship to my birthday this year in contrast to last year. So I think I'm going to talk about last year because last year was my 40th.
Right.
So I was like all out. I planned my 40th birthday as soon as I turned 39. Like I was like, okay, we're only turning 41s. It's here. I'm going to spend the entire year setting this up in a way that feels so intentional, so beautiful, so embracing of this new decade. And I did a 4-day, we called it Morganpalooza.
Yes. Nice.
And, it was, choose your own adventure. We jet ski. I live in Southern California in Long Beach. And there's a company that will tour you and lead you on a jet ski tour from Long Beach to Catalina, which is about 50 miles. And, it's a whole day thing. It's really kind of hardcore. And so I gathered a group and we did this jet ski adventure. I'm a little bit of an adrenaline person. And so that was like activity 1. Then that night we had a party at my house. And then the next day we played beach volleyball. And then I had a pool party after that. And then we ended the pool party at karaoke all night long. And then anyone could come to brunch the last day. So it was Morganpalooza. And people have been speaking about Morganpalooza all year, honestly. Like it's been this joke and just a reference point of how fun it was. And it was this, I'm kind of new to where I live. And so these are newer friends who were a part of it. And it was this beautiful space to gather and have all these different kinds of activities that like really anchored these new relationships. And that was reflected back to us in all these ways, right? Like if you're doing this great adventure on the open ocean, or you're singing together, or you're swimming together, So that was 40. And then going into this year, I was like, whew, so glad I'm not planning that again, because it was a lot of planning, logistics, communication, who's going where, when, why. And so this year I was just like, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to just chill on my birthday. I don't care. I had a very loose plan, and that loose plan fell apart last minute. And I was like, oh no. Actually, I do care. And now it's too late because it was like 2 days before. And, if you live in the Southern California area, like everyone's so spread out that like you can't really be spontaneous here. Like people really need to plan. Anyway, it was a huge lesson of like, oh, it was a lot of work to do everything that I did. And also after Morganpalooza, I had a women's circle that was facilitated to do like the spiritual side of things. I didn't do any of that. And I felt like, and then of course my period was starting, which is probably too much information, but I don't care.
Not at all. Cycles of time, but it's in there.
Cycles. I mean, if we're talking about cycles, like it really, so like in my own internal cycle and then this birthday cycle, and I was like, ew, like I did all of that for 40, and then here comes 41 and I have done no intention. Like, so it didn't feel good, but I reached out to some girlfriends. They totally met the moment. I ended up spending time with them all weekend. And then my birthday was on a Friday. And then on that Sunday, I really like grounded in. I like did a sound bath and meditation. I journaled all day long. And I'm actually spending this whole week doing my own kind of practices and reaching out to different friends. So, the other lesson is like, so the lesson is like, I don't have to do Morganpalooza every year, but I do need to put a lot of intention in because that's how I live my life. Why would I not do that on a birthday?
Right.
And, and the birthday can come and go. You can still do the intention the week after. You don't like lose the year or use the birthday. So anyways.
Yeah, I was so sorry to miss your, no, I was so sorry to miss your 40th. I was almost on a flight out there, and I was there
so close.
I was there in spirit for sure, sailing amongst the dolphins and on the jet skis. I want to do that sometime.
We'll do it again. Honestly, it is. I've been skydiving. I've done hang gliding. Like I have done a lot of adrenaline things. That is the best thing I've ever done.
Ever. Wow. Open ocean. That sounds amazing.
Open ocean. Yeah. I mean, they almost always, they said pretty much every single time they land in schools of dolphins, because now the schools of dolphins like the jet skis. They want to jump and play with them. So, and it's also like hours of adrenaline. It's not like, skydiving, it's like, oh, it's really fun for like 15 minutes if you count the flight and then jumping down. But like this is hours of adrenaline, ocean, water, dolphins, wildlife. And then you land and you break and you have lunch and you chill in this really, Catalina is beautiful island. And then you do it all again. It's like,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
epic. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I'll do it with you again in a heartbeat.
Okay, let's make a plan. I'd love to do
Yes.
that. Sounds amazing. Have you always been such an adrenaline junkie slash
Yes.
birthday like lover of your birthday time?
Yes. I mean, I don't always love my birthday, but when I do it right, I do. Like
Right.
I
But putting energy into it and putting attention into it. Yeah. And
yes.
intention into your birthday. Nice.
I think it's just your one time a year, right? Like make it about you, do whatever you want. And then I think, as I've gotten more intentional, more wise, more in tune with myself, I'm better at setting up, spaces and gathering that I'm going to enjoy, which to me is activities and, there's games going on or there's ceremony or there's something to bond the people versus just like a group dinner, which is like kill me 10
Yeah.
times over. If I
Hmm.
never have to go to another group dinner as long as I live. If it's more than 6 people, I'm not there.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel you. Yeah.
it's too impersonal. Like I like to go deep. I like to have shared goals. Let's have fun. Let's be laughing. Let's, if it's
Hmm.
a big group, I think we need to have an activity. I think it needs to be silly,
Yeah.
and I think that can be really bonding and really powerful. And I'll say everyone that was a part of that for my birthday last year, we are so much closer. Like it's just been, I feel similarly about like if you can do vacations with friends and, spend weekends together versus like just sharing a meal, like it's nice to do that. But how can you deepen, this is getting into like play and how I feel about play in general. I
Hmm.
feel like
Hmm.
when you're truly, truly, truly in play, that's your best expression of self.
Yes.
And so if you can play, truly play, whoever you're around is your best people. That's your best match. You have the best match of shared values, which is so interesting. This, I can't wait to hear more about that because I feel so strong about values.
Mm.
But, not everyone's play is a match for each other, right? And so
Right.
when you find that, it's so special and you tend to bond even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I love hearing where this passion for play is coming out because I've always known you to be a playful person, but seeing that it's yeah, I mean when I think about a birthday, it's like I used to have a friend that would every time a birthday would come around, she would say congratulations on another trip around the sun.
Yeah.
And I remember, hearing that this was when I was like in high school or something and I really didn't quite grok it. I was just like, why did you say that every time? Why doesn't she just say happy birthday? And here I am doing this podcast that's kind of all about the trip around the sun, right? And
Yes.
about birthdays, about the sun's transits through all of these seasons of the year. And I think that, when people can identify with their birthday and their season and really honor that as this epic trip that you've taken,
Yes.
an entire lap around the sun, it's like totally worth celebrating and playing. And, I know a lot of people that are not that into celebrating their birthdays, and that's totally fine too. Obviously, I'm a big birthday celebrator. I enjoy it as well, but I'm always not always as well planned as I want to be. So I
I
love
mean, it doesn't
hearing,
have to be this big production,
right? But just
One, or go
yeah,
ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, one practice that a friend of mine taught me that I love is thinking about your top 10 moments from the year prior, right? And so that's one of the things I did on Sunday when I sat down. I was like, all right, let's just think about this. And I pulled out my phone because, you tend to take pictures of your happy moments.
Yeah.
And I was just writing bullet points and I knew like very quickly, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a lot more than 10 this year. I had such an amazing year. And then I finished up and I counted and I was like, oh, that's 40. How interesting. I
Mm.
just on a brainstorm, there were 40 moments for 40. And like, what a gift. Like, my other years it was 10. And I'm like, oh, like something's working when these like big, beautiful moments. And that like instantly took me out of any sort of like birthday blues I was having about this one day that I didn't set up well. And so of course it didn't, go perfectly, but um it actually ended up going perfectly because the friend I spent the
Mm.
day with, I needed to, we had such a great catch up and, whatever. So,
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. I love 40. You started 40 with a bang, and then you had 40 memorable, epic moments throughout the
yes,
year. And then we're able to reflect on that, which is another big part of your process. I know from
yes.
having worked within Hustle and Play framework in the past, that reflection and gratitude and looking backwards is just as important as planning ahead, right? So
Yep.
I'd love if you could chat a little bit about Hustle and Play and kind of the work that you're doing in the world regarding bringing play into people's lives. And yeah, just in your own words, I said a little spiel, but I know you have a much better way
Yeah.
of explaining it. So,
Yeah. So essentially, it's a wellness program that helps folks play every day. And if you play every day, you are going to build a life that you want to be in. It is going to naturally go towards your values. You are going to be your best expression of your highest self. And it's fun. If you're playing every single day and you're being honest with yourself about what play is, and you're courageous enough to experiment in that play, your life is going to take a really great direction. And it's going to also counteract all the systems at play that want us to grind.
mm,
You know? And
yeah,
I know hustle's in our name, and that's really just because hustle is a part of life. Like we can't escape hustle, and it needs to not be on a pedestal, right? So we need to figure out how to hustle and play. We
I
need
love
to
that.
have both.
Hmm.
And anyone who tells you that you don't have to hustle at all and you can have your dream life is lying to you. You do need to hustle. And hustle is good if it as long as it doesn't run your life.
Right.
And the way that you make it not run your life is to have a lot of play. And the life that or the world will condition us away from what play really is. Play is not numbing out to turn off the hustle switch.
Hmm.
Play is innate. Watch your daughter, watch the puppies, watch the little lion cubs. Play is as natural to us as eating, drinking, and sleeping. And the world capitalism has conditioned that out of us. And so my program helps us find it every day, not just on vacation, not just on holidays, but every single day. And so it's not this big, you need to get a massage every day and you need to sing karaoke every day. And that's what we're talking about. It's like, no, just noticing the parts of your day where you're really laughing, you're really connecting, you're really alive,
Hmm.
right? Like that's play. And so I have a whole framework. I have a whole, slew of folks who've been using our program now for years. And so that's become a community. And a big part of play, shocking, is togetherness and healing. Because it turns out the more you play, the more you heal. And your life kind of really starts to shift. And so when your life is shifting because you're playing more and you're more in tune with yourself, you want to be around other people who are doing that, right? And you kind of start to notice maybe not so many people in my life are doing that right now. They're numbing out or they're shut down or they're bogged down by all the things to be bogged down by, right? Like we live in a really hard time. We're in this big transition of all the things that I could name, and what, the pandemic just happened and we're coming into this new world. And I'm sure you're talking about this so much that we need to be in alignment. We need to be light, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Mm.
Um, and if we can be light, then we can flow like
Mm.
as things are happening. And the way to stay light and the way to stay flowing is to be playful.
Ah, I love
And
that. Yeah.
so it's a whole program that you work on your own. There's a book that you follow. It's kind of like a journal, kind of like a planner. And then you come to the community and we have these peer learning groups. I do coaching, there's retreats, and it's really beautiful. It's all emerged, didn't start that way. And what has emerged from folks using it is this really robust program that is really transformative.
Wow. That's so exciting. I love hearing you speak about it, and I've known you probably for a decade now, maybe more even, a long time, and
Yeah.
I've seen you, yeah, come out of the education system and hustling and grinding in your photography business, and as the entrepreneurial mindset of just like, yeah, grind, pedal to the metal, make it happen, and kind of through all of those, and then starting Hustle and Play, just seeing how it's iterated and kind of pivoted so slightly since the time when I met you and you were kind of emerging with this work that helped you, right? I mean, it kind of
Yes.
came out of your own, scratching your own itch or solving your own
Yep.
problems. And just,
Exactly.
yeah, seeing how it's like really just gotten more and more and more about play throughout the years. And
Yep.
that's so beautiful. I love what you mentioned about being light and how play is, yeah, just when you find a smile on your face and you feel kind of, I saw you kind of moving your shoulders up and down like your body is light. And I like to think of play as like a time when you are in your body, and the hustle has to be there, but hustle is oftentimes very like future oriented, right? And it's heady. It's like you have to be thinking about how the dots are all connecting to each other, from like the above, right? Rather than just being in the moment of like, okay, go into the next dot and doing what feels good. But that's beautiful, beautiful to see that it's helped so many people, and you formed this whole community surrounding that. It's just so inspiring. Yeah.
I mean, it's really like it's an honor of my life because, and what changed, I'll just say, like, Hustle and Play emerged from a framework I was piecing together for myself, right? I was studying all these like productivity and spiritual practices, and I just wanted something in one place. So I was condensing all these things I was learning into one place, and I was using it for myself, and it was leading me in a great direction. It was teaching me like what I care about, and reflection is a big part of it. So I was like learning, like, what am I noticing about myself? Let me do more of that. That's how it started.
Mm.
And then when I saw how folks adapted it for themselves, and then I watched them gather together and talk about how that's feeling and looking for them, something happened in those conversations, even for myself, where I was like, oh, I didn't even know all that was happening when I was doing it by myself. And there's something so important about this collective courage to share and to name and to reflect back to each other that is important right now, right? We are so isolated. We're more isolated than we've ever been. And while it's good that like therapy and coaching has become so destigmatized and it's a lot more normal to show up and be one-on-one with somebody and let it all out, that's a very different thing than being amongst your peers and saying, hey, like these are my values right now. This is what I'm exploring. Hey, I tried this new thing to go play and this is what it felt like. Or I don't even know how to play and that makes me stressed out. Now I'm more stressed that I don't play. And what do I do with that? And your peers are like, hey, this is what I tried. Or maybe you could do this. Over the years, what has surprised me is that people keep coming back. I have people in my groups who have been in them for 4 years. I'm like, you
Wow.
guys still want to do this? Okay. I actually need to pivot my business model for this, because that is, most things that you see are like, oh, it'll be 8 weeks. And that's what I thought it was going to be when I started. But then we got in there and I'm like, oh, no, this is something bigger.
Yeah.
This is a bigger need in this transition time where no one really knows their place. If you did the pandemic intentionally, you should be on the other side. Like, what the fuck? What is my? Can I swear? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I mean, that is a deserved swear right there. Yeah. Yeah.
If you didn't come out of the pandemic with that question about yourself
Mhm.
and your life and your direction, then I don't know what you were doing. But like, I think that is the collective call of like, what's important to me, where is my place, what do I want, who am I in this world? And if we can weather that together, can we hold hands, can we play while we wade through that muddy water? I believe there is beauty, there's infinite possibility, but it is very hard to hold that perspective in the dark. It is very hard to do that when you're alone. It is very hard to do that when your only interaction most days is Instagram with other people. It is a dark place.
Yeah, we all think it's this kind of like fabricated communities that we think we have through social media because it's social, right? And you are theoretically interacting with thousands of people perhaps on a daily basis,
Yeah.
but like you're getting, maybe a like, that dopamine hitter of a like or a comment here or there, but when it comes to that actual kind of being in the messiness together, being vulnerable, there's no space for
Working it
that there.
out.
Working it out, yeah, and feeling truly held in that
Yep.
there isn't a place for that, and you can't really create that online. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I know there's lots of people that say, oh well, maybe it's a different social network, maybe it's a different, it's different spin that's not so monetized or advertised heavy, but it's like, no, it's something to do with being in the cauldron together, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, and truly, yeah, kind of seeing what comes up in real time, right?
And
So
having expectations of that space. You are expected to show up. You are expected to contribute. You are expected to learn and grow alongside these people. This is not a passive experience, right? It's not a webinar.
right.
I think that's another like kind of false piece of connectivity that exists today where it's like, oh yeah, I can just sign up for this thing. I can do this. I can show up, but my camera's off and I'm folding my laundry and I'm, doing whatever. And maybe I'm there, no, like we're
Mm-hmm.
present, we're here,
Mm,
even if it's virtual. Um, and it has, again, just shocked me the
mm,
level of retention that has happened over year, where I'm like, okay, this is actually what we're diving into now. Like,
mm.
I used to do it where I could just sell the book and take the book and do whatever you want with it. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm like, nope, we're coming in, we're doing this shit together.
So what is the real time kind of in person or virtual in person component look like? Is it year round container, or that you're kind of working on the book together? What does it look like?
So we have these monthly groups that meet. There's one weekly, and then there's a monthly group, but there's a series of groups. So you can choose what you want. Like there's a group for moms, there's a group for entrepreneurs, there's a group for witches, there's a group, for just a general group if you just want to like learn about hustle and play, you want to be accountable. And there's a group for romantic partners if you want to do it with your partner.
Nice.
And so you can do all the groups if you want. You can do one of the groups. And we just gather, and depending on the affinity, right? So like for entrepreneurs, for example, we talk about how your values interweave with your business and how you're, you know, making sure to play in your life while you're carving a business. Like, why would you choose to be an entrepreneur if you don't want your life to flow in a certain kind of way? And it's so, as you know, I'm sure, I know you know this. I don't know if you know this in your current life, but I know you know this in your last life of
Absolutely.
how the grind will take over.
Oh yeah.
And the beauty of entrepreneurship is if you're putting that on intentionality into it, it can be so playful and so spacious and so rewarding. And so, that's say the aim of that
I love
affinity
it.
group. And then
Yeah.
romantic partners, I think, is really powerful because then you're aligning your dreams and your values and your play together. And if you're carving a life and building a life together, those things need to be aligned, or at least they need to be at the forefront of your conversations, in addition to just like everyday logistics, so that
Mm.
you don't have these stupid little nitpicky fights about what's going on in your hustle. And I didn't know that was going on, and that influenced my play, and now I don't get to play today because your hustle took over my play. And da, da,
Yes.
da, da, da. And like how many of our
Oh my
romantic
God,
partners
that's
are fighting about
nonstop.
that basic.
Yeah. Misunderstanding or just like kind of hidden something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. But I love those. These, yeah, what about the witches one?
So the witches one is in flux. So that one is like the oldest, most kind of close-knit group right now. We're hoping to expand it more. So we're actually still kind of building it. I feel like I can't really like accurately speak to it yet because they need to be the ones that like set the tone. But I think that one will be women only. It will be for women who have been, either using hustle and play or like at a certain level with their personal development. So they're like deeply committed, so that a deeper relationship can form. The other groups I think are a little bit more fluid. You can pop in, you can pop out. The witches one is it's operate more like a coven, and where it's like, no, we're here to be. Oh, and there's one other group I didn't name, which is the sober curious group, which is really an important part of play as well. Like I think once you get into play, sorry, not to like derail.
Oh, no, it's good. I'm loving hearing all of these. Yeah.
I personally quit drinking as a result of using hustle and play. As I was investigating my play, I just got less and less comfortable with alcohol being behind my play. And as I got curious and started experimenting with taking it out, I just didn't want it to come back. And a lot of people are having that experience. And so we have a group for sober curiosities. Some people are sober, some people aren't. And it's just a conversation about how alcohol and play intersect.
Love it.
But yeah, back to the witches, there's going to be a lot more like ceremony involved, a lot more spiritual component that is not necessarily a part of the other groups.
Okay. Amazing. I love these affinity groups, and I've worked in affinity groups or kind of use that as a structure in the corporate world, but seeing how it's taken here, and that's kind of the guiding light behind how the structure works, but that they're all, I mean, I wouldn't know which one to join. I could definitely be a part of every one of those, I think. So.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting, so when you sign up now, like I have to do a call with everybody and we kind of like talk about it, like, okay, where are you at in your life and what are your dreams right now? We're not using the word goals at all anymore. We're using the word dreams.
Nice.
And I'm very excited about that. So we would, what are your dreams in the next year? What feels aligning? What's happening in your schedule, right? And because some people actually do want to go to every group. I have like one or two people that probably are in 3 or 4 groups, which is beautiful. But like, I would say most people can do one,
commitment wise. Yeah. Time wise. Yeah.
And so, which one would align with where you're at and, where you're trying to go next year.
Beautiful. Yeah. I did it for a few years when I was just the book and came to a few of your offerings, and before it was a full package like this.
Yeah, there was a lot less.
And I think, it was like in my mind, I was like, I'm in business, I'm an entrepreneur. And so it's going to help me with that. And I was definitely still, I think back just a few years too, when I was intersecting with this, and it was like so much more mental and so much more of that kind of like conditioned pressure to be in my head, and that being like justifying my time to do it was going to get me to, a goal. Right. But I love the reframing of dreams, and that it's not necessarily just for starting a business, but for, parenthood, for sober curiosity, for ritualizing your life, like all of these different things that can that can add play into them and help that be I think of water, the way you explained it. Yeah. Just the current that you're bubbling down. So I love that. Beautiful. I just have to jump in here and talk about your human design sun gate, because everything you're saying, I would usually wait till the end to talk about this a little bit, but I just wanted to have a little anecdote because we have talked about it in the past couple episodes of this show. And gate 50, which is my Pluto gate, actually. It's where Pluto was when I was born, and it's where the sun was in the sky when you were born. It's known in the I Ching. So human design gates come from the ancient 64 gates, 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. That's kind of the origin of the human design system. And 50 is known as the cauldron, and which I think is really interesting because of just the iconography and the visuals of Scorpio season and kind of the, spooky season, the witch's new year, all of this kind of stuff. But also because of the way that you're talking about bringing values together and bringing people's values into a kind of a similar place so that they can unfold and learn from each other within that place. And the more research I've done on the cauldron, on gate 50, it's known as the gate of values in human design. And you've brought up the word values again and again here. And I think that the way that aligns is it's the gate that takes us from Libra season into Scorpio season. So it takes us from those like scales of Libra, which is kind of weighing us against the other, me versus you, this kind of thing, and kind of making sure that everything's in equilibrium. And it's kind of taking us from that point into the cauldron, like throwing all of our differences into this cauldron and then letting them kind of boil together and simmer together until they create like a stew or a soup or a potion that is representative of the collective and the kind of group's needs. And so just everything you said about hustle and play and this life's work that you're investing in. I had to jump in and just say something about how it really seems to me to align with your sun gate, which I found to be very true for almost everyone I've talked to on the show, that there's a certain kind of overarching, just like umbrella philosophy that resonates with the sun gate. But I'm curious if you know anything about human design or about your sun gate or anything about this before this conversation and how
I had a reading once, and she said a bunch of stuff, and I wish I had the recording because I would rewatch it. But I remember everything that she said really landing. I know I'm a projector, so everything I read about that really resonates. But I also want to say, like, everything you just said really tracks with my life. So prior to doing this, I ran after school programs. My job was to bring students of all grades and all backgrounds together into a cauldron of a program and synthesize it with very few resources. Like and now knowing what I know about myself and being a projector and blah, 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 I'm like, oh, like that felt like my life's work at the time. And it was my life's work at the time. And, we could get into all the reasons why it stopped being my life's work, but really like the systems of injustice within that world really got the best of me. It was not good for my soul after a while. And then when I did That's What She Said, which is a women's organization to gather women and have speakers. And the whole point was to gather different kinds of women from different backgrounds and that would not normally intersect to hear each other's stories and connect. Yes. And, unfortunately that had to be set down during the pandemic, and maybe it'll come back one day. But now in Hustle and Play, when I had the clarity of like, I want to take this in the direction of building it, focusing it on the community aspect, I was like, of course, like this is what I've been doing my entire life. Right. And so to hear, and I had clarity over the center of the framework of Hustle and Play are what I call manifestation values, which are the values that we're trying to call in. So every year we do, some work to narrow down what those values are. And then all year long, we're focusing on these manifestation values and bringing them into our lives. And it is so beautiful and so transformative. And so to hear that is fundamental to who I am and what I was born into, what the planets were doing, it's like, it's so confirming what I've felt all along, which is, yes, this is my life's work. And it's very unexpected. Like I didn't see this for myself when I was in school or
right. How could you really? I mean, until it plays itself out. And then now you have three beautiful examples. I remember That's What She Said in San Francisco. Beautiful coming together of minds and different values, different backgrounds, just the diversity. I mean, you've always worked within diverse environments in the sense of just lots of different people with lots of different backgrounds. And I feel like you have such a power and such a talent to really hold space for those different values to come together and kind of turn into that bubbling brew of, what it wants to be in the moment. I hadn't really put that together with your after school work either, but seeing all of those examples is, totally profound.
You put them all together.
Yeah.
And you're
right. And it's in Scorpio season, which is all about death and rebirth and transformation and transmutation and kind of integration. The way I'm looking at a lot of the zodiac signs in kind of an ecological context right now of just like as we live through the seasons, which I know that Hustle and Play also has a lot to do with kind of, it's winter now. How do you feel in winter? It's different than how you felt in summer, right? Let's own that. let's name that. And with this work through this podcast, I've also been paying a lot of attention to, just the subtle changes of the seasons as they happen in the world around us. And as we reach Scorpio season, it is that time where like the leaves are breaking down, the seeds are breaking down and kind of getting buried in the soil. And it's like a return of the selfhood of spring and summer to the otherhood of winter and fall, which is like, having to break down, having to compost, and having to kind of assimilate with the past of like the soil is all of the former living organisms from years and years past, right?
Yes.
And so this being the first gate that brings us into Scorpio season, I got really excited when I started reading about it and learning about it, because I was like, yes, it is the first time that we're really just starting to like emphasize how the soil is just as important as the plant, right? We're kind of like, okay, now we're into the merging and the mixing and the melding. And so the cauldron to me just really shines through as a beautiful symbol for that. But you do it so well. You bring them all together. Yeah.
Well, so I'm gonna try and make this quick, but this has been an update in Hustle and Play since I think you've had the book, which is that we are now integrating our lives as garden metaphor.
Okay.
And so we've now built out every part of ourselves as these pieces of a garden. And so you have, plants that are happening in your life. That's work, that's family, that's relationships, projects. Those are plants, right? Well, those plants grow out of soil, which is our mental health. And also, what you just said about soil is so beautiful. I want to think about that a little bit more, but like, all the mental health and all the things that our ancestors gave us, it all lives in the soil. And we didn't get to choose that soil necessarily, but we do get to choose how we take care of it. And our plants they were grown from roots, right? Seeds that grew roots. And those roots are our values, our core values that we already have. Mm-hmm. And those values, conscious or unconscious, grow big, beautiful plants, but they also grow weeds, right? And so we have to think about what those are. Those are things that are limiting beliefs or things that are holding us back. And so anyways, I keep going with all the details, I do think that we are in harvest season. And so we were just talking about all of this, and what's so beautiful about the leaves falling and becoming the compost that feeds our garden going into winter is, we think of that as like, what are the lessons that we've learned this year that are dropping from our plants that are going to continue to feed our garden going into next year. And it's a really fun practice. So, if anybody wants to just try that, like, thinking about what are the plants in your garden, what's being shed, and what are the lessons that you've garnered from this year that's going to feed you going into next year. Like, anyone can do that. I think it's just really helpful.
I love that. Yeah. I feel like in the astrology world and in kind of the woo world in general, we hear a lot of like, release what no longer serves you, like that phrase, like release what no longer serves you. And I think that is true. But when we release it, like, where does it go?
Where does it go?
Like, it goes back to the earth. It needs, and it turns into something else. Like, it's this idea that
disappear. We went through it. We need to use it. Release it. Why? What did we learn from it? And transmute that into something that feeds us, so that it's not just this like negative thing. I don't know, whatever it is. Like, I don't like that release.
To release it. I know. I hear it so much. I feel like it's one of those things that's so easy to, and you're like, yeah, that sounds good. I'd love to release some of this shit that I've been going through, right? Like it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. It's much more of a return, a compost, planting of new seeds, and I think that there is a release in nature, there's definitely some, like the leaves are a perfect example, or seeds dropping out, but it's really, I think, harder for us, especially city dwelling folk, to like, who don't garden per se beyond like a pot, to like understand soil and like that whole, like a whole half of the year that's about like the creation of soil and and it's so important. It's what it all comes out of. But it's more complicated. Like, you reach this darker time of year, and I think not only in the garden is it more complicated because you can't really see what's going on as like it all breaks down and the mycelium creeps in, and you're like, what actually is happening? Because it's like alchemical, right? you can tell when a sprout shoots up and then it
Yep.
like blossoms, and that's all very visible to us. But like,
Yep.
yeah, this other part is hidden, kind of how the winter months we can
Yep.
feel kind of in this introspective, dark, like
That's winter.
subconscious things coming up that you don't really, they're not quite in the light. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, I think the spooky season kind of thing, that's also very trendy to say spooky season. It makes sense. And I think sometimes it's also like a little too glummed onto, like, oh, it's spooky, so yeah, put it over there. But I just love the idea that, like, within this season of the year and the season of life, your birthday season, there's a direct kind of confrontation with like that other side, and just saying like, hey, here it is. Like, what are you gonna do with that? So
Right. Well, it's like preparing for winter, right? Your harvest is all about celebrating the abundance. So it's like, what was the abundance of this year, and giving it the proper, like having a birthday in harvest season is such a gift because it's perfectly aligned with what the weather's doing and all this. So I've always loved that, where sitting and thinking, what is my abundance from this year? What am I celebrating? And also, what are these lessons? And da, da, da. So when winter comes and I am planting new seeds and I am tending to my soil and I don't know what's happening and it is dark and I have to just be with myself and the parts I can't control and trust that nature is going to come back around and the sun is going to shine again. I can best set myself up for that because I've really honored all the seasons that came before it. So I can actually celebrate that darkness, and I can set up my rituals and my play and my community, so that to support whatever I need during that time. Some people really love that darkness. I don't. So I need to do stuff so that it doesn't get the worst of me, right? It doesn't make me too sad. Like, I'm a sun baby. That's why I live in Southern California.
yeah, yeah,
But I've learned that about myself. I literally moved so I could be closer to the sun and like have, structurally set up whatever I can. Anyway, I think that piecing these parts of ourselves into a garden like metaphor is very helpful when we start to get into feelings of, when you think about burnout, your world gets really small, everything is broken, nothing is working, da, 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 da. No, let's piece it out. What is it? The soil? Is it the plants? Is it the roots? Is a weather pattern moving through your life? We're in midlife now. There's all kinds of weather that could be coming
yeah.
through. Am I injured? Are my parents sick?
Oh man,
Am I in
yeah.
job transition? Is there a pandemic? Like, is there
Is
an
there an
election?
election next week? Yeah.
It matters. Like, it
Yeah.
matters to consider all the factors.
Right.
And if you're not thinking about it that way, then it's very easy to like blame ourselves and be like, oh, I suck at life. It's because my everything is broken. It's like, no.
Right. Yeah. There's like an oscillation between blaming yourself and then blaming like everything else, or blaming the system, and then back and forth. And
Yes.
it's kind of this like, that in itself is exhausting, I feel, just kind of going back and
Yeah.
forth between those two, because it's obviously much more of a tapestry than that. But both are, tend to be focused on blame. And I think that switching that narrative to kind of like, yeah, an understanding of the larger picture. And I love that metaphor of, yeah, considering the garden and, yeah, the weather pattern that has nothing to do with you, maybe. And it's passing. Yeah, it's really, I think it's super helpful to see the metaphor of plants growing in that way, and plants dying, to be able to say, oh no, I wouldn't like blame a plant for dying, and I wouldn't blame a plant for like growing too soon. It's
Or a
like it
seed for not
happens.
sprouting,
Right,
right? If you
exactly.
think about that as your dreams or your goals or whatever, like if you think of it as a seed, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's just not ready to sprout yet. Or
Yeah,
maybe I need to move it. Maybe I need a different
yeah,
whatever.
right.
Like,
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not a
Yeah.
perfect gardener, but
No, me either. It's like a metaphor that's like based on. I'm slowly becoming more and more an actual gardener, and I'm like, oh wait, there's a lot more to this than my simple metaphors. But but the more I learn, the more it actually feeds the metaphor rather than detracting from it. So
right. Well, and you live in a place with such pronounced seasons. I am very jealous about that, by the way. The one thing about being here is like, oh, there's no seasons. But like, how beautiful is it to just see nature do its thing? Like,
Yeah.
oh, like this is the sunny part of the year, this is the dark part of the year, this is what the plants are doing. Da, da, da. It's in our churn that we are in now of just rapid fire information, and it just seems like everyone's doing all the things all the time, and it's just bah, 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 bah,
Mm-hmm.
bah, bah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am very jealous of Southern California at a lot of moments of the year. But I think that, yeah, I never would have done this podcast or kind of gone on this inquiry if it hadn't been for like coming to home to a place that I knew in my body really well that does
Yeah,
have really pronounced seasons of snow and heat and falling leaves and gold. You know,
yes.
you've been here during the Aspens. And so it does really show that that's, you know, it's almost this kind of perfect wheel of the year that, to live within. And when I lived in the Bay Area, it wasn't that. When I lived in
No.
other places of the world, definitely wasn't that. But you can still, there's still that built into a lot of these kind of cultural metaphors, I think. And as far as like, yeah, how do we live through change? How do we thrive as the seasons change and the world changes? So,
Well,
yeah,
no one knows that better than you.
guess so. Yeah, I've
You
experienced a lot
are
of
very
change.
good at, holding change and cycles and being very intentional as you do it. So it's one of many things I love about you. And
Oh,
I think this podcast is a great expression of your emergent passion and um, you following your alignment towards
yeah.
your creation. And it's beautiful to
Thank
witness
you.
and to be a part of.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting to think about this gate 50, this cauldron, because my Pluto, you know, Pluto is the kind of, it's a planet that's hidden from our view. It's way out at the edge of the solar system. And so we don't really know what's going on with Pluto, but we do know it's about like the underworld and kind of things that there's riches down there, but you also have to kind of dig through a lot of muck and dirt to get to that. And I've been going through my Pluto square, which is a midlife transit where the Pluto in the sky is making a square angle to your natal Pluto. You're probably going through it as well, just considering we're the same age, but it varies a little bit depending on your birthday and everything. But it's within the late 30s and early 40s when this happens, and it's kind of about like bringing up your underworldly stuff in middle age and saying like, oh, here I am. And so I've been really interested. Yeah, like, oh, here, like, what's that? You know, like that's a cool thing, but wait, I'm really dirty now, and like just totally just don't know which way's up. You know, but with Pluto in that gate, I also do feel like, yeah, by doing, you know, comparing a lot of different cultures, and not comparing, but bringing them all into this cauldron as well, of kind of saying this isn't just a one line thing. You know, I started off studying astrology, got into qigong, then got into the, you know, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of overlapping value here, and I just want to see what happens when you kind of put it all together and stir it up. So I don't have any water in my chart except for that Scorpio
Oh,
placement with you. So I love Scorpio. I just do. I feel like it's like this deep love. And speaking of which, I'd love to hear just your thoughts on Scorpio as a archetype before we wrap up here, because you are the Scorpio season guest and guest of honor,
my God.
queen.
What an honor. What
Yeah,
an
but
honor.
how has Scorpio shown up for you like over the course of your life, and yeah, how do you relate to that archetype now?
Well, I'll say, I'm Scorpio sun and Scorpio rising. And there's one other planet, I want to say Saturn. And I'm Gemini moon. So I'm like all the evil spirits of the world. That's what they say. I don't know. No, I think that that I have had a little bit of Gene Keys reading. I know you're into that too. Human design, astrology, every single thing across all of my everything is like power, leadership, strength. And that is a through line for me since I was a little girl. Now, that is very challenging though, as a little girl, right? Those are masculine, traditionally socially accepted masculine qualities.
Right.
So to be a very naturally strong leader, kind of unapologetic from a very young age, that was usually very rejected about
Mm.
me, especially from adults, especially from male adults. So, coaches or friends, dads, not from my parents. My parents were very supportive about this with me. Um, but I was definitely like a tomboy growing up. It just was, so I have had to do quite a bit of work to celebrate that about me. And it's like making me emotional because
Yeah.
it's hard, when you're young and you're like, wait, and I'm a projector, right? So it's just like, you guys are doing this wrong. Like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
don't you just do it this way? Like, this makes no
Yeah.
sense. And I have no filter about that, like being a good girl. Like that was not how I was raised, and that's not my nature. My
Mm-hmm.
nature is to speak up and name what I see, and to very Scorpio qualities. In addition to really liking deep conversation, really wanting to, I've never lived at the surface. And so if I'm, this strong leader who's like, let's go deep quickly, like that can be very aggressive if I'm not careful, you
Mm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always had strong opinions. I feel very, very passionately about social justice. And I've really had a journey to find my softness as I channel that power, because it is powerful, right? People
Yeah.
do, I can influence folks, and people will come with me, but I don't want to do that out of like shame or right or wrong, so like I'm thinking about 2016 era politics was so polarizing, it was so hard, and I was very angry,
Mm-hmm.
and that anger, I would say, started, I mean, I think I was born with it because I am a child of the patriarchy. I understand the injustice at play. It's very hard to be a little girl being shut down at every second when you're good at stuff, and people just don't like that you're good at things and that you're shining.
Yeah.
Um, and it wouldn't make sense. It was not fair, right? So then I'm like, that rage is building, building, building. So I think it reached a peak for me around 2016, 2017. And my healing journey really kicked off in 2020 with the pandemic. And, I had been in therapy before that, which was really helpful. But like when everything stopped and hustle and play was really birthing, I was able to, that's when I stopped drinking. I was like, oh, like, let's just take a step back and go a little slower here. And let's think about this power, what I want to do with this power, not just letting it run wild, unchecked kind of
Mm.
thing.
Mm.
Um, so
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
2016 we went to, or 2017 we went to the Women's March in DC
we went to
together.
the Women's March. That's when we
Yeah,
started
that's when
That's What She Said. And That's What She Said was such a powerful project. And it was important. And we needed a place for our rage. And I would say that was a place for our rage. It was more than that. But I think that was a big value that maybe wasn't being named. But it was a place for women to be okay to, there were no men there. There was definitely never going to be men there. And that was kind of the energy behind that. And we could gather and we could share stories and we could feel safe, and that was so important. But also, it was that polarizing part of it was central.
Mhm.
And I don't believe that anymore. I believe that we need to be in community, we need to be in collective healing, and that demonizing each other for disagreeing or not understanding each other is the problem. Like that is the deep root problem. And being angry at people for not seeing what I see is not helpful.
Yeah.
And I get to see a lot. That's part of Scorpios are psychic. I could go on and on about all the premonitions that I've had and seen and known, and how that's translated in my life. And, even leading up to the pandemic, my whole life was set up to be good during the pandemic and to be in position of service for the pandemic. And it was kind of the best time of my life, honestly. Because of all that, because I knew in my body something was happening and I was ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's very, very Scorpio. And I've learned to trust that. which is also really hard when you're numbing out with alcohol or other things. You can't hear those channels, they're blocked. And so, I've just learned to celebrate these aspects of myself, trust them, and also just be okay with like, that can be a little isolating sometimes. Like, yeah, not everyone sees what I can see. Not everyone can, wants to come along on this like big path that I feel like I want to carve. And, sometimes that doesn't feel great, but that's okay. I'm comfortable in the dark.
Comfortable in the dark. Yeah. I definitely, it's so beautiful to just see how you've evolved over time. And, I mean, you're never a big drinker. You never seem to be a big partier. You always seem to me from when I knew you as, someone who had it together in a certain way, but definitely seeing how like a certain amount of acceptance of just, I mean, that decision for sobriety because of the psychic nature is something that I haven't heard you speak about. And that's super fascinating. I think that there is, a lot of us do a lot of substances in order to, play or have fun, right? But then it's kind of like, what are we actually hiding from that could be, or numbing ourselves out from, or kind of distancing ourselves from, that could be a deeper sense of play and fun and attunement to our own psychic abilities, or the place we are in life. And so I really see that. And did probably being a Scorpio, that the Scorpio has 3 totems, that not just the scorpion, but the eagle and the phoenix as well. Yeah, I remember learning that when I was pregnant with my little Scorpio, and just really like being like, oh wow, that's a big responsibility as a mom. But then I was like, no, it's like, to like help this evolutionary process. So then I was like, no, don't feel like that's on you. But it was just really a beautiful for me to see that like there are similarities within the scorpion and these birds of prey and this mythical bird that's kind of born out of the ashes and a complete rebirth, as this like powerful being, in that like how we decide to navigate through that darkness is either kind of just staying in it or deciding to kind of rise up and having this laser vision of everything around you. And when you mentioned that kind of psychic nature, psychic abilities, seeing what other people don't see and wanting to bring people along for this larger vision, I really saw the eagle in that, kind of just soaring above and seeing, all of the disparate and different beings that are down below, and kind of that they're not so different from each other after all. No. Yeah.
I mean, and it's just a beautiful path, even though it's hard, right? Like, and I know all the science, like everyone has their own stuff, but I am so grateful for this, right? Like, I mean, obviously it's all I know, but one other thing I wanted to name was just like other Scorpio women and we find each other. Like, it is a really interesting thing that I've noticed, especially in the last like 5-6 years, where like my group of Scorpio women and we talk to each other differently. We relate to each other differently. There's like a very quick drop in that like we understand each other on a level that is so unique, and I can't describe it accurately, where it's just like, yep, I got you. Like, because there's a darkness to us, right? There's a pettiness, there's a jealousy, there's a using your powers for evil, right? That's why we get a bad rap. And I think if we're honest, we've all done it, and we know we have access to it. At the stupid Zoom.
That Zoom gave you a thumbs up for that one. Yeah.
But like that's been something to overcome. It's like, if you have access to this power and you can see things that people can't see, because we can read minds, right? I know, especially like in dating and relationships, it's like, oh, like I know what you're thinking before you think it. So I can really use that if I want to. And that's not love. Right. And so just because I have access to that, I had to like teach myself, and I'm still in process of teaching myself like what love really is, when, you just allow someone to be, even when, you can see shit they can't see, and you could just fix them right up,
That's where Virgos and Scorpios get along. I think it's like a high five. Okay. Like
my Venus is in Virgo, so maybe that's what
Oh my gosh, that's funny. My daughter Tala says, I already know that, mom. Like every single thing I say, I already know that, which is so funny. Like this 5-year-old, and I'm like, oh, we're going to this new place. I've already been there. I already know. So and it's just like, it's just the funniest thing. So I think I need to have like a consultation with you about like how you've worked through that. Cause I'm just like, you don't know. She's like, oh, I know. And I'm like, well, you probably do. You remember things from like past lives and just the other, the other world. And it's beyond what I can even claim to
Just
know.
gonna talk to her like an adult. Like she's an
Yeah.
adult,
Right.
and everything she says is worthy. And like, yep, yep, yep. Even if
Yeah.
it's not, like,
Yeah, that's such an interesting reflection on yeah, kind of when you mentioned cutting through, like you get together with other Scorpio women and you kind of like are able to cut to the chase or just kind of like cut through. I think that's really interesting because another cycle of time that I track and follow as part of this is the 5 element cycle in Taoism, which is kind of the origins of Chinese medicine. TCM is influenced by this, where different body parts are associated with these different 5 elements, but it's also the wheel of the year. And this season that we're currently in is the season of metal, and it's kind of represented by the sword. And it's a time when it's between earth and water, and it's this time when we are kind of just as a people, kind of we have to cut to the chase. There's no dilly dallying. It's like it's time to like prepare for winter, so you got to just get to it. But so I thought it was kind of interesting that you brought that up as well. It's all interconnected.
it
So,
is. It
yeah,
is. I
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
And you as well. Before we close, I'd love to hear if you have any advice for or suggestions for bringing play into this dark season and the winter season ahead. I know a lot of people are kind of, like getting a little bit, I know my shoulders start to rise up and I get a little bit like it's freezing today. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of this to look forward to. But how do you bring play into this season? And as we look ahead into the kind of unknown future that lies this week
I
ahead.
love this question because it is different every season. And I think sometimes we hold these expectations not only in play but also in hustle, like, oh, my hustle should look the same in winter as it does in summer, my play. And it's like, no, it shouldn't. You should do less hustle in winter, and you should do more play and hustle in summer, more of everything in summer. There's more light, more energy. So if there was a general piece of advice, it would be to do less. This is the time of rest. This is the time of restoration and reflection. So how can you integrate play with reflective practices? We're closing in on a cycle of 2024. And so before we open a new cycle of 2025, what are your playful practices to reflect? So I'm thinking about, are you just simple things like, do you burn incense? Do you burn candles? Do you light fires? Do you, these kind of warming elements that work with the season? Something I really like to do in these darker months is make sure that I see a lot of music and go to venues and concerts. Like I'm thinking of a concert that we went to right before the pandemic at
For the
Pentagram.
lockdown. Yes, that was the best. That got me through so much of those early pandemic days. I was like, at least I went to that concert.
I had like deep visions at that concert, and it was the dead of winter. It was pouring down rain outside. It was freezing, but it was so hot in there, and we were dancing, and this music was kind of dark and moody, just like the season.
Yeah.
And like I'll never forget that concert as long as I live.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So thinking about, and so there's some concerts coming up. I'm like, for sure I'm going to make that happen. And I know that sometimes we think of like summer as like festival season and I'm outdoor concerts and stuff, but like, are there like smaller venues that you can go see music and be in smaller groups of people, but it's still in gathering? And that, that can apply to like anything and that comes to mind for me because I'm really into music. So, and I think music generally is extremely healing. There's a lot of neuroscience coming out about this. So anything that you can integrate music in, like I said, fire, any warming elements, intentional gathering in small numbers. So it's a great time to do that reflection with people you really love and trust. Put a little structure to it. Don't just gather and just hang out and, shoot the shit. Like, put some conversation prompts together. Ask each other, what are your top 3 moments of 2024? What are you composting this year? What are you thinking about? What was your favorite moments? What did you learn? There's all kinds of ways to steer gathering in community in an intentional way to like get to the honoring of the cycle that we're in.
Beautiful suggestions. Yeah. I mean, if you have more,
Like,
keep going. Yeah. No, these are awesome. I love remembering that
and then
concert.
if you like snow stuff, like
Yeah.
if you like to snowboard, if you, like to just be around snow, like be in the elements. I remember I live at the beach. My niece and nephew came in the winter and it rained the whole time. And I was just like, oh, well, that sucks. What are we going to do? Stay inside? They were like, anyways, they put on their rain gear. We're like, we're going to the beach. Obviously, they live in Colorado, so they don't have a beach. And they're just like, I'm obsessed with it. And so, like, we're out of the beach and they're dancing in the rain. And I'm just like, oh, yes, this feels fun.
Work
like,
with
it's
it,
cool.
yeah.
But like, this is play at its best right now. I can't make the sun come out. I can't make it not be winter. So, this is true for all seasons of play. We want to go with the season.
Yeah.
Honor it. So think about it. And so, for anyone, it's like, just do a little brainstorm. What do I like to do in winter? List it out. Yeah. Put it somewhere you can see it. So then when you're like, you can choose from the list.
Yes. Print it out and write it down. Yeah. I mean, I am a snow sport person, so I love winter as it approaches. It's just like, woohoo, there's something active that is waiting for me that is so fun and flow state kind of mentality that I can get into. But I hadn't thought about concerts and like intimate gatherings, and because I do think of it as kind of like I'm going snowboarding by myself and then I'll go, go off on my own and then come back and have a nice little fire. But it does feel kind of isolating winter, even with the fun adrenaline sports that I like to do. Yeah. So I love that idea of kind of like matching the mood and like, the type of concerts or the type of music or gatherings being kind of, it doesn't have to try to be something that it's not. It can, you
like
can
cooking, make it, like people have like soup parties. I think that's really fun. That's aligned with the season, or, we're baking together. I don't know. I mean, I think it's different every year, but like I said, I hate, like, winter is my least favorite. So like, I always book a vacation in the winter. I'm like not really good at that the rest of the year, but in the winter, I'm like, I'm going to go to the beach for a week, and usually in February, like kind of in the middle. So I'm like, that's going to break it up, have stuff to look forward to.
Right.
And making sure to exercise, move your body. Like, do not skip that. What do you need? I do a lot more hot yoga in the winter, and I don't do that all year long. But, obviously all bodies are different. So whatever your body can do, you should do, and do not, like, that's the first thing to go, I feel like. So how can you align your play with your movement? So, whether that's snowboarding or snowshoeing or, shoveling I don't know what snow people do. But do you join a gym just for these 3 months and then you cancel it because then you can be outside, like, just being cognizant of this fact, right? That these months are coming and it is going to be colder and you're not going to want to do X, Y, or Z. So how can I set myself up for success? Because that's where the mental health really plummets, is when we like let the play go, let the move go. And it's February and I've been on the couch for a month and a half. It's, and then you're digging out of that in the spring. And it's like, why we don't need to go through that cycle. We can work with this season in a way that is more gentle and more aligning.
Yes. Yeah. And remembering, like you just said, that you don't have to join the gym for the year. Like, do it for 3 months. I mean, I think that's what always gets me, is that like, well, I would, but then it'll be over before you know it. And I don't know, I'm going on that vacation in the middle, so I don't think I can't, there's always some excuse, right? But to just think of it as like, no, this is what we have 3 months here. Yeah. What is this season
Join
about?
the gym for the steam room. I did that. That was actually my entry point back into the gym. I was like, I hate gyms and I don't like it. I don't like anything about it. It's too masculine. It's this, that, and the other. But this gym had this great steam room and a hot tub. And I was like, well, I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Right.
And I
Baby
did,
steps.
and it got me used to going to the gym more. And then eventually I started like, all right, I'll go on the elliptical. And then, okay, I'll take a class. And then, okay, and I'm not
Nice.
saying that even needs to be the goal, but I do think like acknowledging, this is something good I can do for myself in these months when X, Y, or Z. And that's just, that's one example, but, the primary message is just to work with and not against. Don't like suffer in isolation because it's cold and nobody wants to go out. Like, be the one to be like, all right, friends, can we have a monthly standing dinner, and we'll rotate whose house it is, and we'll rotate the theme of the food just for January, February, and March.
Yes, it's so funny because I've been wanting to do that. I texted a bunch of people who live like in my neighborhood and kind of like the outskirts of where I live, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do a supper club or a brunch club, and we can decide what it is. It's like, okay, brunch club sounds great, once a month, rotating houses. But that was like in August that I thought of it, and of course it didn't happen because it's summer and people are traveling, and you're just and there's transition and back to school and all this stuff, and so it wasn't a good time to start it. But it was just a thought that I had. I was like, oh my god, that has to happen. And so I kind of was feeling a little bit like, oh, maybe it's never going to happen because it didn't then. But so hearing that this is the great season for that makes total sense. And I'm going to send another text out.
What I want to, the only other thing I want to say about this is that it is work, right? You do have to like set aside time in your schedule to say, okay, I'm going to send that text, and I'm going to send the calendar invite, and I'm going to follow up with people so that they come, and you kind of are building up a rhythm for a while. And this is the part about play where people, in my program, where it's like, oh, we have to learn this skill of prioritizing this. Yeah. Because guess what? When you prioritize it, once you do all that work and you start up and and you get over the feelings of like, oh, this is uncomfortable and I don't want to bother people and normal, all of that is normal, but you can push through that. Then you're gathering once a month with your neighbors.
Yeah, which is so important, right? Yeah, it's so right.
important.
So
and
worth
what
it.
Comes from those dinner, I'm getting chills. I always get chills. What comes from that gathering space around those dinner tables, we don't know yet. And that's Adrienne Marie Brown's emergent strategy theory that I live and die by.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can't know the magic that's going to emerge from creating those tables in this example.
Right.
But there will be magic. There will be ideas. There will be connections. There will be magic that we don't know. And it could be so big or so small, but it will be something. Mm-hmm. And so it is really important, especially now, that we focus on intentional spaces to be together to play. Because we don't have this end goal. You're not coming over to raise money or to, activism, which there's time and space for that too, both of those things. But what about just gathering to play?
Yeah.
And letting it be what it is?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of that set up for us anymore. When we were little, it was recess. Recess went away at 10 years old.
Yeah, and they don't even have it anymore, hardly. School it's a lot less than it used to be for you.
And it's the first thing to go if you get in trouble. And it's terrible.
Right, so. It's the worst, yeah. Yeah, no, I saw on your website, I was browsing through and I noticed you had a quote, another Adrienne Marie Brown book quote from Pleasure Activism. And that just feels, me too. Both Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism I read back to back and then again and just think that they're so spot on. But I do remember the first time I read Pleasure Activism being like, well, how can you be like in that self-care kind of like tune-out mode and be an activist? Like it almost was so radical because it seemed like they were so contradictory. But the way that you're explaining play is active, right? Play is active. It's not like self-care, which I think self-care has gotten so kind of capitalized up upon an
Individualist.
individualism. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I can sell people a face mask or like a show or a, a thing
Yeah.
that they can do for themselves alone, and then nothing against a good bath or like sleeping in or whatever. Like I'm all about that stuff. But when it turns into like, oh, I'm doing self-care and you're really actually just kind of like not creating those containers for yourself to be engaged in a playful way.
Right. Or even, and I'm not shitting on therapy because I live and die by therapy too, but like, what's that other layer? You're in this therapy space one-on-one and you're working shit out. That's very individual. It's your story. It's your
Mm-hmm.
stuff that needs to be worked out. But if we're not taking all of that work into our relations, into our community, into our integrative intentions, what are we doing? And we all know people like this that are like so deep in therapy that all it does is actually raise them into this weird superiority complex. And I would even put myself in that category for a period of time where I'm like, oh, I'm so self-aware. I'm so this, I'm so
Mm-hmm.
that. I know the terms that, I'm operating in this space. Well, that's not healing for anyone else. It's definitely not actually healing for me. All it's doing is teaching me about me, which we need both. You
Right.
need the self-awareness, but we really need to be able to relate, and we really need to be able to learn from each other and complement each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And we do that on a really micro level with our neighbors, with our coworkers and whatever. And so I think in the activism space it gets really hard because there's these big problems to solve, and people aren't on the level that I'm on, and so then you get angry because they don't understand it, and it's like not helpful.
Right.
If we had more people having a monthly dinner party with their neighbors, we would be in a very different world.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
And I believe that from, top to bottom. And it's not like that's my central mission, but my mission is to help us find our play. And you are not finding your play if you're not with people. Period. You cannot play alone forever, right? You've got
Right.
to play together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and I've seen that. I've just seen so much healing that happens that is so transformative in this relational way. And so if you're really pushing yourself to play, then yeah, you're going to figure out how to extend that invite, how to push through all the logistics, and like it's annoying and other people aren't prioritizing it. So then you're like, come on, just like get the sitter or bring your kid, and we're going to work it out together. We're going to figure out our
Mm-hmm.
roles because we all play
Mm-hmm.
roles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It reminds me of a friend of mine. I think you know my friend Autumn. She put together a climate fiction, kind of speculative fiction anthology about climate change. And the tagline for that was "The future is relational." And it was just kind of like the font was these, flowers and vines growing into each other. And I really love that I have the sticker on my car because I was just like, okay, the future is female. Yes, we know that so far. But it's also like you said earlier, the future is relational. It's about getting
yes.
into that Plutonian kind of underworldly, messy space where you will find the gems and the gold down there if you're just willing to look and willing to, put a little effort into it. So,
Effort
yeah,
and vulnerability,
yeah,
and naming your messiness so that that gives
hmm
me permission to be messy, and
hmm
um a
so
little more of
much.
that
Yeah,
will
yeah,
go a really long way versus like, I think this like awareness world we're in now where it's like, did you know, did you know, did you know, did you? It's like, yeah, we know.
hmm
And if I
hmm
don't know, it's because I'm choosing not to know.
yeah, not another carousel post. Don't make
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Like
I
not
can't.
another headline.
Yeah,
Like
not
not
another
another
headline. Yeah,
headline.
yeah, yeah.
So anyways, I'm sure
Right.
we could just keep going.
No, this has been so lovely. Just so, I'm so stoked to catch up with you and to have you here. And for anybody out there listening, please check out Hustle and Play. Can you let us know where to find you on the internet or beyond?
Yeah, so hustleandplay.com is the website. Hustle and Play on Instagram. I'm also on Instagram at Morgan Shidler, Shidler. So you can see my playful life matching, I'm living this as best as I possibly can, as imperfectly as I can. But yeah, hustleandplay.com and at Hustle and Play.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's a game changer. It's a life changer. And yeah, I'm ready to jump back into it myself. Now that I know
Well,
that
we would
there's all
love to have
these.
you back.
Sounds great.
So we can
Sounds
talk more
great.
about that offline.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Well, have a beautiful Halloween and Samhain and all of these celebrations ahead. And again, belated happy birthday. And let's
Thank
talk
you.
again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Morgan, Scorpio Queen, Hustle and Play Queen, for joining me today. And thank you all for listening to our conversation. Again, you can find Morgan at hustleandplay.com, on Instagram at hustleandplay or Morgan Shidler. And yeah, I definitely recommend getting in touch with the work she's doing. It's super awesome. And I just love how she integrates the seasons and the wheel of the year into the way our bodies want to move, and kind of really thinking about how we can have a different form of play for different types of seasons. And so I'm really looking forward to, hosting some supper clubs, going to some nice, cozy concerts, and making a lot of good food this season. It's snowing outside as I record this outro in Santa Fe, and so it definitely feels like a turn to a new season in a really tangible way here for me. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. Its element is water and its modality is fixed. And for me, ecologically, that reminds me of ice, fixed water, frozen water. And here we are with the ground frozen around us, encouraging us to go inward and kind of slow down a bit. And it's in that slowness and after the deep depths of the past few weeks of Scorpio and Libra that we can now access a new level of creativity, I think, kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes, Scorpio's other totem. I think this is a very great time to pay attention to what is emerging that's new within us. So I hope you have a beautiful week of creativity. Again, find people that inspire you out there and follow their lead, and put yourself out there to inspire others so that we can just continue to simmer this beautiful pot of creative self-expression over this coming week. I think that's all we can do. I'll see you again next Monday for the week of the Gate of Insight that lines up with the full moon in Taurus, the Beaver full moon next Friday. So have a beautiful week ahead. Thanks for listening to Cycles of Time, and I'll see you soon.